Outburst, a Todd Mills mystery. Book 4. Author, R.D. Zimmerman. Publisher, Scribble Pub. Minneapolis, Minnesota, 1998. Narrator, Eric Aust. Chapter 22. It was 7 minutes to 6, and Todd hadn't wasted a moment. Having looped around the city on the freeways, he now sped up Lindell Avenue south, hoping that this was it. That this was their guy, and they could eliminate the threat against Rollins so quickly. His energy level was cranked on high, and he said, "This might work out perfectly." "Yeah, it could be entirely cool," agreed Bradley, the photographer, seated next to him. "I'd just love to get something live, something with a little action." "We'll see. This might be a bust. This guy might not even be there." Come on, man. You've got the best luck of anyone I know." Let's hope. He drove one of WLAK's 2 unmarked vans, an old blue thing with large tinted windows and scabby-looking rust spots, while close on his tail was one of the shiny white ENG vans with WLAK's logo painted on the side and a large microwave antenna stacked on top. Yes, he'd made sure they were ready for any scenario, whether this be something they fired back live to the station or something Bradley taped with a hidden camera from the rear of his van. If they ended up doing it live, which would be the best, Todd was pretty sure they could get a good signal from here. If not, they'd have to double hop it, bouncing the signal off one of the downtown towers. Nearing the Boulevard Theater and yet another Starbucks, which were sprouting around town as fast as McDonald's once had, Todd turned left on 52nd, and there, parked to the side as they had agreed, sat the silver Ford Taurus in which 2 men now sat as soon as Todd pulled up behind it. Rollins jumped out. Todd rolled down his window and asked, "Are we still to go?" "Absolutely." Rollins came up to the side of the van, squeezed Todd on the arm, and then leaned a bit into the window. "Hey, Bradley." Bradley tipped his head. "You gonna get this guy?" "It would be very great." No shit, it would be very great, thought Todd, more than eager to get this over with. To have the guy who'd taken a pot shot at Rollins behind bars. Todd nodded toward the Taurus. "Who do you have with you?" "Officer Tom McDean." In case he might need the information later, Todd grabbed a piece of paper, wrote down the name, and asked, "That's all?" "No. A bunch of the guys wanted to in on this one. There's a squad car at either end of the block, each car with 2 cops. There's another one in the alley, too. Any problems, and we're going to be all over him." Rollins continued, "My plan is to take it easy. If he's there, I simply want to talk to him. Like I said, Hallbrook doesn't want me doing a PC pickup just yet, because we don't want him lowering up on us. But who knows, things could get a little hot, and we don't want you too hurt, and we don't want you getting in the way, so stay clear, okay?" "Scout's honor," replied Todd. What about these other guys?" asked Rollins, nodding to the white ENG van now pulled up behind Todd. "They're just insurance, in case we go live for the 6 o'clock, explained Todd. "Don't worry, they're going to stay parked right here until we call them. If we call them." "Perfect." Rollins looked at the large tinted window in the side of Todd's van. "You're sure no one will be able to see in there?" "Positive. Bradley will be back there with his camera, but there'll be a curtain pulled around him. You can't see him as long as he's sitting against a dark background." "Okay." Todd reached out the van window, grabbed hold of Rollins' arm. As a homicide investigator, Rollins usually wasn't at any scenes that were hot. This, however, could very well prove to be, and all because of Todd. "Be careful," he said, not wanting Rollins to be the lead man. "If this is the real guy, he's already killed 1 cop, maybe more, and he's probably the one who took a shot at you. Shouldn't you be wearing a bulletproof vest or something?" "Don't worry." "But, Todd, I know what I'm doing." Todd shrugged, knew he couldn't say a thing, and asked, "So, do we go first? Do we drive up and park in front of the house?" "Sure." But don't stop right in front. Park across the street or something, so it doesn't look too obvious, and I don't want you getting out. Agreed? Agreed. They discussed a few other details, and then Todd started up the van and headed down the street. 2 blocks later, he turned left on Turner, a solidly middle-class neighborhood on the very edge of the city. The entire area was filled with tiny post-war houses, little boxes lined up one after the other. Number 5241 was almost halfway down the street, built on a small ridge and distinguished from the others only by a large spruce tree in front. Spotting the car, Todd said, "There's the 98. As Bradley made sure the black curtain was securely safety pinned behind him, he asked, "Think you can park where I can get a good shot of both the car and the house?" "Absolutely." Todd steered the van into a space across the street and just a bit to the north, which meant that to see the house, you had to look over the roof of the parked car. He shut off the engine, grabbed his pad and pen, jotted a couple of notes. The street, he observed, was fairly quiet. Toward the end of the block, he saw someone climbing out of a car. A man in a suit, presumably just coming home from work. Through the cracked window, he heard birds chirping, some kids hollering, and caught a whiff of someone grilling. Definitely hamburgers. His stomach growled. "How's this?" he asked. "I'm just cleaning my lens," replied Bradley, wiping it with a fine cotton handkerchief. "Ah, perfect. Get a nice long shot of the house." Yes. Checking his side view mirror, Todd saw the silver Taurus turn the corner and start down the street. Here they come. Something caught his eye, and Todd glanced up the street to see some small kids, the noisy ones, being shepherded down the sidewalk by a woman, blonde, maybe 30. They were young kids, not even 5. Todd guessed, and he soon realized where they were heading. "Ah, shit," muttered Todd. "What?" demanded Bradley, crouched in the back, peering through the lens of his camera. "Some kids are heading straight for the house." "Yeah, I see them now." The 2 children were darting across the yards, racing along while their mother continued up the sidewalk until she reached 5241 and started up to the house. Todd wondered if Rollins would simply make a pass for now, if he would continue down the street and come back in a few minutes, but then things got even more complicated. "Uh-oh," said Todd, spying someone emerging from the front door. "Here comes someone else." "Wow," cooed Bradley. "What a babe!" And that she was, a trim young blonde in mod black shoes and a tight outfit. A real beauty, no doubt about it. And Todd watched as she stepped out of the house, a small purse and what looked like an overnight bag in hand. The children ran up to her, grabbed onto her legs, and she kissed them on the top of their heads. She said a few quick words to the other woman, the one who'd been out with the kids and who now disappeared into the house. The young woman then continued down to the street and straight toward the Oldsmobile 98. "Oh my God," muttered Todd. "That can't be him, can it?" "What?" snapped Bradley from behind the curtain. "That's no guy. Trust me. I'm the straight one here. And I know a beautiful woman when I see one." Well, thought Todd, she certainly passed as one, and he watched with fascination as the trim, sexy blonde proceeded around the rear of the car, twisted what looked like a couple of wires, and opened the trunk. She was just rearranging something in the back and tossing in her bag when Rollins pulled up, parking his car right in front of the Olds so that the 2 vehicles were radiator to radiator, as if he were going to give the other a jump. Hearing all this, the woman, clearly confused, glanced from around the back of her car. Seeing the 2 men, a look of concern swept over her. Almost as if she didn't want anyone to see inside the trunk, she slammed it shut, then worked quickly to secure it with the wires. A moment later, she darted up to the sidewalk. Rollins, as always, was clearly going to be his determined direct self, and he was already out the door and walking by the time Officer McNamee's car door was even open. Staring at Rollins, the young woman was about to say something until she saw McNamee, a tall, blond, muscular man in a police uniform. The clear vision of authority obviously didn't sit well with her, and she bit her lip and took a half step back. Even from the van, Todd could hear Rollins call out, "Good evening. Can I speak to you for a moment?" Like a deer caught in the headlights of a marauding vehicle, the woman froze. From the panic etched on her face, it was clear that she knew something, but what? As he moved closer, Rollins didn't waste a moment of opportunity, glancing through the car windows, looking for something, anything to really search the car. Of course, he needed a warrant, which he didn't have, at least not yet. Instead, he was hoping Todd knew, simply to spot something of interest in plain view. Something incriminating, sitting right on the front seat or back seat. With McNamee right behind him, Rollins went directly up to the young woman, pulled out his badge, and identified himself. She stood there, quite paralyzed and biting her bottom lip. Rollins said something else. The woman hesitantly nodded. Looking confused, he asked another question, and the woman pressed her right hand to her forehead and slowly shook her head. Being quite brazen about the whole thing, Rollins turned back and peered again into the rear seat. Had something caught his interest? Watching from the van, Todd couldn't tell what was going on, or where this was going, when suddenly the front door of the house opened and the other woman, the one who'd been with the two kids, came quickly out, trotting down the front walk. "What's the matter? What's going on here?" snapped that woman, her hands on her hips. "Is there a problem?" Officer McNamee, his voice clear and sharp, said, "We're looking for Christopher Kinney. We just want to—" "Ah, shit," said the woman, her voice booming as she looked right at the other woman, the young one by the olds. "The hell have you done now, Chris?" In the very same beat, the beautiful young blonde dropped her purse, turned and fled, dashing desperately away from the 98. Rollins was so stunned that it took him a moment to realize what was happening, and then he took off after. McNamee burst into a run as well, albeit a slower one, where he grabbed his walkie-talkie from his belt and started barking into it. "Come on, that's our guy," shouted Todd as he grabbed his door handle and shoved open the door. "Holy shit, I don't fucking believe it," replied Bradley, clambering over cables and equipment. There was no way in hell Todd was going to let Rollins out of his sight, and he jumped out and took off while Bradley threw open the back of the van and quickly followed, clutching the large, unwieldy Betacam. They charged across the street, up the slope, and around the side of the small house. Then all of a sudden, it was everywhere. The wail of not one police siren, but two, and possibly three. A terrifying chorus that swept through and inundated the entire neighborhood with a tidal wave of authority. No thought, Todd, as he ran. Christopher Kinney didn't have a chance in hell of getting away. Racing past the side door, Todd cut into the backyard and, to his right, saw a flurry of red and white light as a cop car rocketed down the street. "The hell are they?" gasped Bradley. Panic started to rise in Todd's throat until he caught a glimpse of Rollins leaping a chain-link fence. "There!" While Bradley briefly paused to get a shot of the speeding squad car, Todd took off. He followed Rollins' course, running past a single-car garage, through one lawn, straight through a small vegetable garden, and over the low fence. He cut to the right, darted around a garage, ducked down the alley, and there it all was, a vortex of 3 cop cars, their lights swirling and screaming. And in the center of all that stood a half-dozen cops with their guns drawn as Rollins pinned the young woman to the ground. "You can't do this to me!" she shrieked, twisting and bucking with panic. "I didn't hurt anyone! Let me go, you asshole!" "Are you Christopher Kinney?" "Let me go!" "Are you?" "Fuck off!" she screamed as she wrenched one of her manicured hands free and swiped it across Rollins' neck. As Todd watched as Bradley got it all on film, Rollins tumbled to the side, desperately clutching his neck. Blood, free-flowing blood. Not that much, but certainly plenty enough to terrify anyone with HIV. Todd rushed forward. "No!" shouted Rollins, holding his hand out like a linebacker. "Stay back! Don't touch me!" Todd spun to the side, hurried over to Bradley, and demanded, "Give me your handkerchief!" Grabbing it from Bradley, Todd rushed to Rollins, who in turn snatched it and pressed it to his neck. Behind them, the young woman burst to her feet and screamed at the cops now encircling her, shouting, "I didn't do it! I didn't hurt anyone!" She turned to run, but the circle grew tighter, and two of the cops lunged after her, seizing her with ease, and then for one long, strange moment, all the cops just stood there staring as her femininity melted away. "Oh, Jesus," she sobbed, her voice surprisingly deep. Rollins pressed the cloth against his neck and shouted, "One of you guys, get a first aid kit and clean her fingernails, now, on the double." He then turned to her, demanding, "Are you Christopher Kinney?" What if I am? I want to ask you some questions." Chris looked up, mascara streaking down her face, and snapped, "Fuck off! I didn't do anything." "Then why the hell," he demanded, exploding, "did someone see your car down by the Mississippi the other night and..." "That's a lie." "And why the hell did you run away?" "Eat shit! You fucking pigs can't do this to me again! You can't!" "If you'd just..." "I'm not going anywhere with you assholes," she yelled and then spit into Rollins' face. Wiping the slime from his cheek, Rollins shouted, "That's it! Cuff her! We're taking her in. You're under arrest for..." "Fuck off! You're under arrest for the murder of police officer Mark Forrest," boomed Rollins. "No! No!" Chris screamed. Two cops descended upon Chris, now easily pinning her arms behind her back and handcuffing her wrist. "Be careful, for Christ's sakes," shouted Rollins, who then looked frantically around. "Where the fuck's the first aid kit? You've got to get her cleaned up right now. Now, damn it all. We need some alcohol, some disinfectant. What the fuck's taking you so goddamn long? He yelled at the cop, who'd gotten a kit from his squad car. "Get the fuck over here now." Todd had never seen this, never seen Rollins blow, and he came up behind him, touched him on the elbow, and said, "Rollins?" "Don't fucking touch me!" he snapped, ripping his arm away. Todd jerked back, and there, staring at him, was not a person, but the Cyclops lens of Todd's own world. Slapping his open palm over the eye of the camera, he snapped, "Jesus Christ, Bradley, not now!" Gay Mysteries audiobooks. I think it is easy to hate a label, but a face humanizes the word. So this effort is twofold: to offer comfort to those like myself that your world didn't end because you don't fit into the view of acceptable society on both sides, and in hopes of helping those with family that are LGBTQ, that it doesn't mean we are aliens from the child they once knew. Reassure them so they can maybe be supportive at the same time, being true to their values.